you that the gods came down with wind, and the wind became so powerful it blew the bricks of that tower completely down. Well, Nimrod went to Shinar, which is Iraq, to build the tower to reach heaven. Nimrod was a rebel to defy God and say, you're not going to destroy anything with water again. He also built in the area of Iraq the cities of Kilnah, Akkad, Erech, and Babel, which was later to be Babylon, the area of Babylon, Genesis 10, 10, and 12. He also built in Syria, Nineveh, Rehoboth, and Resen, Genesis chapter 10, 10 through 12. So this man rebuilt in what we call today the area of Iraq and Syria, some of the very first cities, and again his name was Nimrod. Now, the Tower of Babel was built by Nimrod. He was called the Mighty One. Now this is interesting. 6 times when Mighty One is used, it's the Hebrew word Gibor, and it refers to giants. And remember that there were angels that came down into the daughters of men, remember, and had relations and bore mighty men of old. This is really strange because some scholars think that Nimrod was actually a huge man, and that's what people were attracted to with him. He was a very strong giant of a man. We do know he was a warrior, he was a hunter. He protected people by killing any wild animal that may have existed. Now, without going into detail about this, because this would be an entire another message, there was a race of giants that were in the earth before and after the flood to corrupt the seed. And of course we know that David annihilated that race. So my point is that when Nimrod picks up this genealogy, there is a gap with Noah in which Noah's sons are righteous. However, when you have Ham that had Cush and Cush that had Nimrod, let me say it this way. Study it out. All false religion started under Nimrod and his wife Semiramis. All of the false religions started under these two individuals. And you can trace it down. There's been books that's been written about ancient Babylon that will tell you. So now there's been a gap, okay? Suddenly they pick up the seed again, and this lineage of Nimrod becomes a great rebel. He's very negative. The history of him is extremely negative. So now the earth has been scattered and the nations have been divided. Now all of a sudden there is a break again, and we find that there is a lineage pickup through Abraham meeting Melchizedek. So the seed of Shem now comes from Eber, and Eber begins to start the Hebrew people, and Abraham now begins to continue a righteous seed here through what was going to be called the nation of Israel. Now all of a sudden we get Abraham going. Everybody say Abraham. Well, we get 2 different seeds now that start coming out of Abraham. Well, we have the seed of Abraham having 2 sons, Ishmael and Isaac. Ishmael, the daddy of the Arab nations, Isaac, the daddy of the Jewish people. And then we have a son by the name of Jacob that comes. When Jacob comes, we discover that we have Jacob and we have Esau. We have another set of 2 sons that come. Jacob forming the race of the Jews again, keeping the Jewish lineage going. Esau keeping the Palestinian tribes going. The Canaanites, the Hivites, the Moabites. All those tribes you read about come through Esau. Then you have Judah going into Tamar. As he goes into Tamar, you have Pharez and Zered being born through Judah. Again, 2 separate sons. Now here's what begins to happen. I want everybody to follow me carefully. Let's first look at Ishmael. Ishmael is the daddy of most of those people living in Arabia. Let's just say the oil states. A lot of the oil states in the Arabian Gulf are the sons of Ishmael. Now let me tell you about the sons of Ishmael. Listen to this prophecy in Genesis 16 and 12. He will be a wild man. His hand will be against every man, and every man's hand against him. And he shall dwell in the presence of all of his brethren. The word wild man in Hebrew means a wild donkey. Now when you say this word in contemporary terms, people don't like you to use it, although it's all over the King James Bible. So for everybody that has a 1611, here's the translation. He's a wild ass. He's a wild donkey. He's a wild ass of a man. That's what it means. I come across a wild donkey one time in Israel. I had a cameraman named Wayne Kilpatrick. What was that guy trip, man? He was hilarious. He stuttered. He stuttered all the time, and he'd get excited. He really stuttered. He could sing and never stutter. But just like, what's that guy, Mel Tillis? But I'm telling you, when he got nervous, I'm not making fun of him. He's a dear friend. We have laughed with him over and over again. So he's out there filming a wild donkey. And I want you to know that wild donkey went nuts on him. That's all I'm going to say. A wild donkey, you can't tame it. A wild donkey is crazy. A wild donkey, you can get on him, he'll throw you off, or he'll kick you, from the backside. Now, here's the thing I want to tell you. Here's what's interesting. Ooh, listen to this. The Middle East people who are Arabs are about 95 to 98% Muslim. Now, here's the thing that people do not understand. How can Muslims kill each other? How in Iraq, how come the Sunnis are killing the Shia and the Shias are killing the Sunni? How come Arafat's party, the Fatah party, and the Hamas are shooting each other? Let me tell you something. If you give a son of Ishmael a gun, he'll go shoot somebody. And these guys are nuts. At Arafat's funeral, they had these machine guns. And bullets are falling down, hitting people on the head, knocking them out, and killing folks. There were people that they were shooting these guns, and this is a true story. I had a friend of mine that was there. He said they're shooting guns and people are dropping and the ambulance is picking them up. And they're blaming the Israelis. Israel had troops on the roof shooting the people. They're shooting a gun up in it. Where's a bullet going to go? It's not going to go in outer space. It's going to come down on somebody's head. You give them a gun, they're going to shoot somebody. You give them a bomb, they're going to blow somebody up. And you know what? Can I tell you this? You ready? Here's the big revelation. It's in their DNA. Now, it was God that said, you're going to be a wild ass. And every man's hand is going to work against you, and you're going to work against every man. They not only can get mad, and I'm talking about specifically from the Muslim side, because Arab Christians basically are peacekeeping people. They want peace. You don't see them getting in all these fights. They try to avoid them. But from the Islamic side, you go over in the Middle East, man, I mean, these guys, these two Muslim businessmen will get in a fight and almost kill each other. It's in their DNA. And come on, preach on. I'm going to. Hallelujah. And that's the son of Ishmael. Now here's Esau. You know that Esau hated Jacob. Isaac, his father, answered and said to him, behold, thy dwelling shall be the fatness of the earth and the dew of heaven above. And watch this prophecy from Papa. By thy sword you shall live and serve your brother. And it shall come to pass when you shall have dominion that you shall break his yoke off your neck. Now here it says fatness. Fatness means the richness of the earth, and it comes from a root Hebrew word that means oil. Hey, guess who's got the oil? The sons of Esau and the sons of Ismael. I had a guy tell me the other day that just got back from the Kurdish Iraq. He said, Perry, did you know that in Jordan, where many of the Palestinians are who trace their descendancy through Esau, Jordan hit oil, and they hit it lower than Arabia. In other words, it's lower than Saudi. And Saudi got afraid that the oil in Saudi was going to run into those lines underground into Jordan, and they paid Jordan $1 billion a year not to drill oil. The Arabs right now are terrified that Israel will find oil somewhere, but if Israel found oil, it would have to be lower than Arabia because it'd have to be deeper. They've already done some drilling and found a little bit of evidence, but no big breakthrough. And they're terrified because then the oil of Arabia, they're afraid, would shift over into Israel. You see what I'm saying? But Israel at this point doesn't have oil. They've had a few wells that produced a little bit, but they dried out and they had to shut them up. So, you'll dwell in the fatness of the earth. Then it talks about the dew from heaven above. The dew is a literal, but it also deals with living outdoors in tents. Just like Ishmael, watch this, you will have a sword. Now once again, if you